This is Talk Radio 1270 live from the Motor City. And it is, in fact, Friday.
Wow.
You had.
What are you doing?
The last couple of weeks, you guys have screwed me up because
how is it our fault?
Yeah, okay.
What did we do?
The last couple of weeks, you had me talking. And then I missed it, and I thought I was going to be late there.
Is your first day on the air here, Doc?
All right, I'll man up and take responsibility. I screwed that one up.
Better.
Should we?
How is it anybody else's fault?
I just said it's my fault. I'll man up. I screwed up. I was 10 seconds too early. Sorry about
At
that.
least.
Coming up, remember Tom Coburn? He's the one that put out the
pork
big
waste book.
Yeah, put out the big pork. He is now delved into the Defense Department budget. You know, that's one of the big ones, and that's one of the things people always complain about. Well, you can't cut defense spending, and I've always said, no, you can cut everything. There's going to be waste all over because it is, in fact, government. He has now gone through specific, and coming up, I'm going to share a couple of little things that he found that maybe you might think also is something we shouldn't spend money on in the Defense Department. You know, we got that sequestration coming up, and they're going to be looking at cuts, not just at the Defense Department, but everywhere, but also the Defense Department. So we'll dive into those in just a moment. But right now, Steve Forbes joins me, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media and author of Freedom Manifesto, Why Free Markets Are Moral and Big Government Isn't. How are you, Steve?
Good to be with you, Doc. Thank you. I'm doing fine.
It's good to have you on by. What's that?
Better than the Republican Party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know what's funny, Steve? I got to ask you: Did you anticipate Barack Obama getting reelected? Did you really think?
No, and I said so in print. And so the day after the election, when I was called on it, I had to say I was misquoted.
Because that's a wise foreign policy. No, I'm one of the few that I really saw it coming for a couple of months. So on the next, after Election Day, that next morning, I wasn't happy, but I was prepared. You know, emotionally, yeah. I knew what was coming. I just think what's happened, and I think this goes to the heart of your book too, that people don't pay attention. They really don't know history. They don't know economics. They're not educated. So it becomes like a reality show. He's a good guy. He's nice, likable. So we'll go ahead and reelect him.
Well, I think that that's one of the reasons why I co-authored this book was to explain in a very casual and understandable way the whole essence, the moral foundations of free markets, so that people can be better armed in the future. And as you know, the schools don't do it today. They don't teach civics. They don't teach real history anymore. So a lot of Americans, while I think they instinctively understand it, don't have the more of the background and information they need to make good choices at the ballot box. And to be fair, I think sadly Mitt Romney was only sporadically capable or willing to spend the time to explain what free markets were. He always seemed to be on the defensive.
That's unfortunate. You're right. He did, and it's also difficult, Steve, to explain free markets and why they work, because it's so much easier to be emotional and say some people have too much and some don't have, and I don't want to see people suffer. But it's hard to lay out to people that just because you're emotional about something doesn't mean that your knee-jerk reaction or accepting big control is the right way to help people.
Well, that's right, and that's one of the reasons why government has expanded so much is they say, well, maybe we're inefficient and all that kind of thing, but our intentions are good, we mean well. And actually, as we explain in the book, free markets are moral precisely because they meet people's needs, meet the needs and wants of people, and big government meets its own needs. We see that time and time again. You know, that Chicago school strike a few weeks ago? Mm-hmm. That was all about pay and benefits, not about the kids in one of the worst school systems in the country.
That's an excellent point, because all across America, you've got districts that will pay high prices financially, lots of money per student, and yet they don't get the better results.
Absolutely. And you see it in my home state of New Jersey. Our school systems in Newark and elsewhere spend upwards of $18,000, $20,000, $22,000 per pupil, and you have to ask for what? And it's all about the power structures, the unions and the like. And you see it, just take that GM, which President Obama beat Romney over the head with. You'd think that Obama favored reorganization while Romney favored liquidation. No, Romney favored reorganization and doing so in a way that wouldn't cost taxpayers $30 billion. He had a perfectly good plan of using some guarantees for warranties and the like to do it, save taxpayers $30 billion, but that never came through.
Talking with Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief Forbes Media and author of the book Freedom Manifesto, Why Free Markets Are Moral and Big Government Isn't. Steve, I think part of the way forward, and I think most people recognize this on some level, is to educate people. I'm amazed that we have this war on capitalism that has done so much good for so many people, probably more good than any system in the history of the world. And yet we now, over the last few years, have been debating capitalism. I don't understand. It's like I'm living in an alternate universe or something.
Well, it's big government advocates saying big government is generous. Big government is concerned about the weak, the sick, the infirm, and free markets are cold, amoral, based on greed, and crushing people and always going off the rails like the financial crisis. And it's just the opposite. Government causes every major economic crisis we've had, big one. And free markets are about meeting people's needs. It creates circles of cooperation. You don't, trying to do a product or service. You got to bring people together, get them to work together. Breaks down barriers between people. You may not love your neighbor, but you sure want to sell to your neighbor.
That's right.
And creativity and innovation all comes from free markets. And young people especially need to understand that they don't like authority and oppressive authority. Well, then you should be a free market advocate.
Steve, it's like you're reading my mind or looking over my shoulder. The next thing I was going to ask you is about young people in America. I think that's where the disconnect. If you look at the numbers about Republicans losing and the president get reelected, everyone wants to play this identity politics based on demographics of race and everything. That's not the failure. The failure, I think, has been to explain to young people what the world is really about, how economies work, and educating them what is best for them in their future. That's where I think the failure is.
Well, and the whole thing on the demographics, you can tailor messages. It's like selling a product or service to your particular audience. One size doesn't fit all. But the messages are the same. The policies are the same. The principles are the same. And you got to get out there and figure out how to get the message across so that people who, say the waiter at the restaurant or somebody working at a store can see that free markets are the way for them to have a better life.
Steve, I'm somewhere between conservative and libertarian, in my views on things, and I do in some what you may consider in some ways a pretty stereotypical radio talk show for somebody that's conservative, and then in many ways I don't. I handle a lot of very fun things, and I like to wrap a serious message in some sort of satire or sarcasm. That's what I always bring to the table. And I recognize it resonates with people. It's a great way to sell a message to young people. So what I'm looking for, Steve, down the road is more people like me to be like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, but really give them, valuable information on what it means to be a capitalist. We need a Jon Stewart that is a conservative.
Yes, and I think you're going to see that emerge more and more. Obviously, radio's been a great instrument, and I think the web, enabling people from the most unlikely places to start learning how to get the message out there. And the amazing thing is, on the exit polls, the majority of people don't like big government. And so if we get the message across, I think there's a lot of good ripe ground here.
Years ago, I was explaining to my niece, who was 16 at the time, she was asking, what's a Republican and what's a Democrat? So shockingly, she hadn't learned any of this in school, Steve. So I sat down and I really tried to teach her over the course of an hour in a very unbiased fashion. I laid out about 10 or 15 issues, and I said, this is one issue. How do you feel? Here's the argument on both sides. And I went down, and to my surprise, she was a moderate conservative. This is a 17-year-old or 16, 17-year-old girl that I thought was going to be, based on how she acted, fairly liberal. But when I asked her some very simple things like, should you be able to keep as much of your money as possible? And do you want other people? And if they do get it, that you're going to help them? Shouldn't there be some standards or whatever? She got it all. But people don't lay it out that way.
Well, and at the convention, you remember the speech from Susan Martinez?
Oh, yeah.
Martinez, the governor of New Mexico, and how she was sitting down, she and her husband, and they concluded after hearing the talk that, hey, we're Republicans and we didn't even know it. We got to do more of that.
Yeah, all this time, if I just understood, I didn't even know. Talking with Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media and author of Freedom Manifesto. Steve, I really appreciate you joining me. Do you ever see another run for president, or are you done with that?
I'm an agitator, not an office seeker.
Okay.
And sadly, there's a lot to agitate about now.
I understand. Well, I hope to help you agitate. I'm kind of in that role myself.
Fantastic.
All right,
Good.
Steve Forbes, thank you, sir. I appreciate you joining me.
Take
Have
care.
yourself a great day.